The fact that there's not going to be inflation except for this transitory period, that doesn't really make sense, but they have to say it. 2015 was the low for commodities. One indicator I always use, and this is tried and tested, is look at the US dollar versus the Canadian dollar. He came home and he was like, I just made $100,000 today. And all of a sudden I didn't care about mowing lawns anymore.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching Yankee Stacking. In this video, I will be talking with Collin Kettell, the CEO of Nevada King. It's about a very interesting junior mining company he runs. But I need to say something really important first. Many of you know, especially those who are subscribers of my channel, you know that my focus, my passion is on physical precious metals, silver and gold, stacking, also prepping, also macroeconomics. Back in 2020, I started investing a very small portion of my overall portfolio in the commodities markets. We're talking food and agriculture, lumber, precious metals mining companies. I'm actually about ready to buy my first uranium company. These are stock market investments that I think are going to do phenomenally well in a decade of rising inflation. But you might say, whoop, stop right there, Yankee. Stop. I hate the stock market. I only want to stack. I don't want to watch, a video on some mining company that you're going to talk about. You know what? That's fine. I understand why you want the physical metals. I do too. But I bet that most of you watching right now have at least a little bit of your money stuck in your 401k or your IRA. Maybe you're making use of one of those trading apps. And maybe it's not just a little. Maybe it's a lot of money that you're investing in the markets. I don't advocate for tech stocks or meme stocks, or crypto, or pretty much any of the highly overvalued companies that many are putting their money in. I am a contrarian investor. I look for sectors and stocks that are undervalued, in my opinion, and I don't even put a lot of money into those either. I want to preserve my wealth more than even building it at this point in my life. I'm 55, so it's very important for me to stack, and I know it is for you too, but I still invest a little bit in the markets. I was made aware of Nevada King by a company called Future Money Trends. Now, you may recognize that name because it's the company that Lior Gantz started, and I did a two-part interview with Lior. It was awesome. Check it out. So Future Money Trends helps companies like Nevada King get the word out, okay, about them and where they're at, any exciting news that's going to be announced, whatever. Future Money Trends vets all their potential clients to make sure they're the real deal. They usually all have big names investing in them. I also research them before I agree to doing a video on them, before I do an interview. Okay, that's where the whole Yankee Quadrant comes in. Why? Why do I do that? Because I take my role in this awesome community very seriously. I want to make you aware of potential investment opportunities that you might have never heard about before. I'm being compensated by Future Money Trends. But for my time researching Nevada King, in this case, my time interviewing Colin, for the editing and producing that goes into making a YouTube video. You can read all about it in more detail in a link in the description if you want to. However, just because I'm being compensated for my time, that does not mean that Future Money Trends or Nevada King or whoever is buying my opinion. So that's one thing. The other thing that I really need to tell you, this is important. When this video drops, I will not have a single share stake in Nevada King. None. So there's no pump and dump thing going on here. I am considering buying a stake in Nevada King. I actually like their value prop. But if I do buy some, that will be, in the near future, not before this video drops. Not that, my channel could actually move the markets, but you get the point, okay? All right, enough said. Let's jump into the video with Collin Kettell. Welcome, Colin. Thanks so much for joining Yankee Stacking.
Yankee, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to the discussion we're going to have.
Oh, me too. By the way, you're on a precious metal stacking YouTube channel. We love to stack.
You guys certainly do.
Silver and gold, right? Primarily. Mostly silver. A lot of people are interested in stacking silver. And I got to ask you, Colin, do you stack?
I definitely stack. I have a penchant, though, for a little bit of an oddball one. So I've been big on platinum the last kind of 2 years. I've been stacking mostly platinum.
Really? Platinum? Physically? I mean, you not the papers market, right?
Yeah, physical platinum. Kind of a similar narrative to silver in that you have that discrepancy between silver and gold, that ratio everybody talks about.
Right.
Well, platinum historically has only traded, the spot price of platinum has only been below gold 3 times. And on average, it trades at something like 1.5 times gold. So platinum right now is $1,200 an ounce and gold's like $1,800. So similar story to silver, just trying to play that discrepancy. I think it's going to play catch up big time.
Playing the ratio there. That's interesting. Do you have any platinum on you? I know I'm really going to put you on the spot, but
I know. I wish I could show it. If I was at home, which I was yesterday, I could pull out some ounces of platinum and show you. I've got mainly the 10-ounce Valcambi bars, so don't have any with me though.
Oh man, that would have been cool. I got to ask you, the Fed, the central banks, they are practically doing everything they can to implement their currency creation policies. 25% of all the U.S. currency ever created happened last year. It's incredible. And I don't think it's going to stop. How does all that relate to commodities?
Very simply, it relates to commodities in that the price of the silver that we're stacking and the price of platinum we're stacking is bought in US dollars. And the more dollars that are out there in theory, the less the dollar is worth and the more those commodities are worth. And on a historical basis, we can see that very obviously. You look back at gold in year 2000, it was at $250 an ounce. And now it's at $1,750, so it's markedly different. Mm-hmm. You look at the price of any commodity, it's the same story, but human beings, myself included, get very caught up in the short term. And so these short-term fluctuations tend to outweigh a more rational view. And so we think, why is gold not up higher now? Or why is silver not up higher now? And it's probably these short-term discrepancies in place that over the long term play out. The Fed has got itself into a situation right now that they're not going to be able to get out of unless they continue doing the exact same thing they're doing. And I was watching a video of Jerome Powell. I don't know what forum he was on, but they're just such liars and they have to lie, right? They asked him about crypto and he made a comment like, oh, crypto is speculative and people should be very concerned. And then he dragged gold into it and he said, it's just like gold. And, and then he said, but central banks have held gold for the last couple hundred years. But anyway, it's just a speculative item. Well, that doesn't make sense. And the fact that there's not going to be inflation except for this transitory period, that doesn't really make sense, but they have to say it.
Yes.
So
yes, I hear you. Either they're clueless or they're lying. It's got to be one or the other, but either way, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, no, it's so important for people to think for themselves too, right? And and protect against the inevitable because they're not going to tell you the truth.
So you think inflation, this whole transitory idea, do you agree with that? Do you think it's going to be a little blip and then come right back down, or what?
So it's very interesting to try to figure that all out. The immediate answer is I don't think it's going to be a blip, but I can't discount the transitory effect that's happening right now. I was actually just on a flight and I was thinking about this. So rewind a year and we had everything shut down and prices dropped and there was too much supply and no demand for a lot of things. And now we're kind of having the opposite. We're having things have scaled back and people want to go back and do those things they used to do. So there's this demand, this surge, and that has to be pushing prices up. But like you said, 25% of all US dollars that have been created have apparently been created in the last 12 months. And I can't believe for a second that's not going to lead to a longer term inflation. So going back to the Fed and their lying act, if you're Jerome Powell, what are you going to say? Well, you're going to say it's a transitory effect, because if they admit that inflation's coming, their monopoly on money is eroded in terms of its strength. So they're going to have to lie. And the truth is going to come out in time, right?
I agree. In this environment that we're touching on, do you think we're in a precious metals bull cycle?
Absolutely. Bull markets are kind of tricky things, and they have a way of shaking the confidence of participants in such a way that less people make more of the money. Bull markets also tend to seem like very slow activities over the first, say, half or 2/3 of that period. And then you get these blow off periods at the end where people just rush into them. And it's so obvious it's a bull market. And, people who shouldn't be involved are getting involved and telling you to get involved. And we're not there yet with precious
the mania.
metals.
That's the mania, right? That's when it really,
Yeah, the mania. So we're not there yet with gold, but 2015 was the low for commodities. One indicator I always use, and this is tried and tested, is look at the US dollar versus the Canadian dollar. And when commodities top out, and that's like all commodities, the Canadian and US dollar trade about 1-to-1. And there'll be a couple year periods that's happened last in 2011 where there was a 1-to-1 kind of par for a couple of years. And then the Canadian dollar weakens as commodities weaken. And so that cycle got fully exacerbated in 2015 when commodities bottomed. And we've been going up since then. It's just been that slow, kind of boring bull market.
Slow, boring. But that's the time to be in on it. That's the time I want to be buying this stuff.
That's when you want to be stacking, for sure.
I have what I call the Yankee Quadrant. It's 4 factors that I look for when I am considering investing in a mining company. Okay, so the first one is management. The second is projects, then ownership, and just the company financials. So management, project, ownership, financials. Before we get into all that, though, tell us, briefly about yourself, your background, Colin.
Sure. So I run a company called Palisades Gold Corp, and that's like a investment company where I do all of my investing through. Palisades is about a $500 million portfolio of junior resource equity. So everything I do is effectively in the mining space. That's where I've spent the last 10 years honing my skill and trying to figure out, how to best make money in that space. Palisades Gold Corp has 2 primary investments. One of them is called Newfound Gold, which I know your audience is familiar with because you had Dr. Quinton Henning on a while back.
I talked to Dr. Henning. He's phenomenal.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Newfound Gold. Oh my word. In a year, that thing has gone up. I think it's 200% or something. It's done phenomenally well. Wow.
Yeah, it IPO'd on August 11th. At about $175 million market cap, which is pretty high for a junior company. And it just reached $1 billion this week. So we're now the largest mining company on the entire exchange. Wow. And having people like Quinton associated to, our work has been a huge value unlock for us.
How long have you been in the industry?
So I've been, I say I got in the industry by default. And what happened was, back in 2001, 2002, I was 11, 12 years old, and I was mowing lawns in the summer. Pretty common story, I think, for entrepreneurial American kids. And I thought I was doing really well. I was making like $15,000 a summer, and all of a sudden, my dad, who was a electrical engineer at the time, decides to start investing in these junior penny stocks in Canada. So it was kind of like 2001, 2002 was kind of like 2017, 18.
Mm-hmm.
It was the beginning of a bull market. And he came home and he was like, I just made $100,000 today. And all of a sudden I didn't care about mowing lawns anymore.
Wow.
So yeah.
That
so
would do
like
it.
within I'd say 3 years, he had retired from his traditional job. He had now become the CEO of a mining company that he had started, and he had probably made, a few tens of millions of dollars doing it. And I just picked his brain, and we took a walk every night for like an hour, and I would ask him all these questions, and he would tell me the day's events. And so fast forward, I got out of college and I was on my own, and I decided to start building companies on my own. And that was about 7 years ago.
Excellent. You mentioned Dr. Quentin Henney. Can you mention a few other people that make up your team?
Yeah, I really like your quadrant, and I like that you started with management. There's a saying in the resource space that good management can make essentially something out of nothing. Bad management can screw up the best thing there is. So management is so important. And
that's why I start with it. Yep.
Yeah, no, very smart. And the big thing that's happened for me as a young entrepreneur has been getting associated to these really brilliant and in most cases older people than myself in the industry. And so Nevada King, we've put together just an absolute all-star cast. I mean, I'll go through a couple of them very quickly. Okay. There's a guy named Paul Matisic. He's the executive chairman. He co-founded the company with me. This guy is as all-star as it gets. So his biography says that he's sold his last 5 companies in the last decade for $2.3 billion. And believe it or not, he's now selling his 6th company this month, Goldex, for about $350 million.
Wow.
So happy to have Nevada King be his primary focus. Dr. Quentin Henning, I mean, you've talked to him before, but one thing I'll say about him, this guy's been associated to so many big discoveries, and he's just a renegade of a thinker. He's willing to take risks. There's a mine in Australia called the Fosterville mine.
Oh, yes.
It's the most profitable gold mine on planet Earth.
Yep.
And Eric Sprott, the biggest billionaire investor in the space, sent Quentin down there in 2015 and said, tell me, is this thing any good? And before they made that discovery, Quentin said, this thing's huge. And, the rest is history. So he's on the board of directors.
Yeah, that jumped out at me when I saw that. I was like, oh, wow. I like following successful people.
Yeah, no, he's amazing. And then another guy, Doug Forrester. So Doug actually started the company that had the Fosterville mine. So they went and picked it up before Quentin came along. And so Doug was the one who sold Newmarket, it was called, for $1 billion to Kirkland Lake. So that's the board. And then myself on there as well. I feel humbled to be around those guys.
So right after this quick break, we are going to talk about the projects. Okay, you're not going to want to miss it, so don't go anywhere. Colin, I've interviewed several CEOs, directors of mining companies. They all want to talk about their value the value proposition, right? What is so unique about Nevada King and especially your properties?
I think the issue with a lot of junior companies is they'll go and find a project hastily, and then they'll start promoting around it, and they haven't spent the time to actually put something together of substance. So whenever I'm starting something, I want to have $1 billion potential. Can this company eventually turn into something that could be $1 billion? I mentioned Newfound Gold to you before the break, and Newfound Gold was started at the exact same time as Nevada King back in 2016. The concept was different. Newfound Gold was, we're going to go stake a brand new belt in an unknown jurisdiction, Newfoundland. And we've gotten very lucky. We've found what looks like one of the biggest gold discoveries on the planet right now. Mm-hmm. Nevada King, I've always thought is a much easier story to tell from a value standpoint. So Nevada is the #1 mining jurisdiction in the United States. In fact, if Nevada was its own country, it would be the 4th largest producer on the planet against other countries. In Nevada, there's 2 behemoths. So the big companies, and you'll know these names, are Newmont and Barrick. They're the 2 biggest gold
Yeah.
mining companies
Yep.
that publicly trade. And they have their headquarters essentially in Nevada. That's where the lion's share of their production comes from. So rewind to 2015, the gold market was really bad. These guys, Barrick and Newmont, had made such bad financial decisions that they were actually dropping ground. What does that mean? Well, they have huge amounts in Nevada that they had locked up, and they were paying rent essentially to the government to hold that ground. Well, they had to start dropping it and letting it go. And these were some of their best exploration targets. So areas that could host a gold mine, but they haven't found it yet. And we were sitting there going around and staking all of it. And so from 2016 to 2018, basically, we were the fastest growing mineral claim holder in the United States. And in that time period, we went from having no claims to having now over 8,000. So we're the fourth largest landholder in the entire state. And the only companies that are bigger than us are Barrick, Newmont, and another major, which you'll know, Kinross.
Yep.
So we have this huge ground package. And importantly, not only is it in Nevada, but all of our claims are in the Battle Mountain Trend. The significance of that is the Battle Mountain Trend is the most prolific trend on the planet. It has more gold ounces in that trend than any other trend on the planet.
I've read that. I had to stop. I had to reread it. I couldn't believe it. I did not know that Nevada was that prolific.
And for your listeners who aren't familiar, because I didn't know how this works before, the way you stake claims, it goes back to the laws of the 1850s when the Comstock lode was discovered. Essentially, you have to go out, and each claim is 20 acres. So our 8,000 claims means we have 160,000 acres.
Wow.
You have to go out with 5 stakes and hammer them in the ground. If that's on the side of a mountain, you have to billy goat up the side of the mountain. And then on the claim, you put your name and your company name and the coordinates, and then you drive to the Bureau of Land Management office and you have to register them. And from there, you have to pay the government every year to keep them. Think about this, 8,000 claims is 40,000 stakes we had to pound in the ground.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. There's something called the Lassonde curve. It's named after Pierre Lassonde, the founder of Franco-Nevada, which a lot of people will recognize that name. But it's a life cycle framework, if you will. And I want my viewers to understand where these mines that we're going to talk about are in terms of that's life cycle.
Yeah. So the Lassonde curve, the easiest way to think about it is like a camel's back, a camel that has 2 humps on its back. So you've got, goes like up and then back down, and then it goes up again. Mm-hmm. And the 2 different stages of value creation and hence share price appreciation, where you get these massive runs and everybody makes a lot of money and feels good, is on the exploration side. So when you're finding something, a discovery, and that discovery period usually lasts anywhere from 24 to 36 months. And then after the discovery happens, those kind of shareholders who are really interested in the discovery and the excitement, they take their money and they walk away and they say, okay, I'm going to go find the next one. And so you get this lull period where things get kind of boring. And they get boring because it takes a long time to permit a mine. But then you get a lot more serious shareholders that come in, and these are institutional investors, the kind of people who are looking for, to own and operate a mine. And then you've got, as the construction happens, the value goes back up. We're on the most exciting part, which is right before we get into that discovery phase, because we're looking for that next big gold find. And that's what the team has successfully done up at Newfound Gold, where our share price has gone up 550% since the IPO, and it probably has a lot more to go. When interest comes back into the gold space, as it is starting to, people want that ground. And if somebody came to you today and they said, Yankee, we're going to go build a Nevada King, you could laugh at them because that ship has sailed. We've already staked all the ground. Everybody else has tried to come do it after us, and that ground is no longer available. So we have the goods, and that in itself is worth quite a bit. But what's going to be worth even more is if we can grab people's attention and maybe find something of extreme significance. There has not been a discovery of elephant size, if you will, in Nevada in the last 20 years. And when that happens, the amount of attention that it's going to draw back, American investors, they love the idea of having a big discovery in Nevada back at home. That is going to drag an extreme amount of excitement. And my goal is to be associated or be at the forefront of that happening. And so we've laid the groundwork, we've laid the stakes quite literally in the ground to have the ground controlled. And now what we're doing is we're going to become the most active exploration company in the state in 2021. We used the bear market when nobody else was paying attention to do a few different deals, do a lot of staking, and we've put it all together. We have a project called Horse Mountain, which is right in the heart of the Battle Mountain Trend too. Back in 2005, Barrick, the largest gold company out there, drilled a hole. Mm-hmm. And it was a few hundred feet down, and they hit a pretty interesting intercept. Like if you think about a deposit being the fire, and then you're looking around it for smoke, they tagged into some really serious dark smoke. And for whatever reason, they ended up dropping the ground. And the reason is that they were so desperate in 2015 that they started dropping their best exploration ground. We picked it up. We're going to go back. We're going to drill right in the same spot they drilled, and we're going to drill around it about 100 feet on each side. And if we find the same thing in this gold market, you better believe that people are going to be interested. And we're going to be very interested to go back and see if we can locate where's that smoke coming from, that fire. It could potentially be one of these deposits that we're looking for. So that's the kind of stuff, we're in elephant country. We're looking for big stuff, and it's high risk, but super high reward if we manage to find something.
Let's talk about the share structure of Nevada King, particularly the ownership. Who has skin in the game here? Because that's important to me.
Yeah, no, it's very important. I through Palisades Gold Corp. So Palisades Gold Corp owns 40% of the company. It's very similar setup, in fact, to Newfound Gold, where Palisades owns about 30% of the company. All of my investing is done through Palisades. I own with my family about 40% of Palisades Gold. So though that becomes a very big interest of mine because I own so much of it. The other directors, including Paul Matisic and other insiders, own about 10% of the company. And then there's a couple other large shareholders who are under 10%, so they don't have to report who they are in the public. But we do have some significant backers behind Nevada King.
What's your cash debt positions?
Yeah, it's really good. We, back about 4 months ago, raised just shy of $20 million. We did it at 55 cents a share. So actually, and that's on the Canadian side. So actually, we're trading around there right now. And now as we start to get into the drilling phase, that's where that speculation that we were talking about before, that speculation around what could they find when they start to drill, will start to kick in, and people really get excited about owning it. And so, yeah, we're trading around there. We have enough money to do drilling on all 4 of the projects, and we don't need to raise any more money until sometime next year.
The ticker symbol for United States would be the over-the-counter markets would be VKMTF. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
All right. Well, I'll include that in the description of the video below. If people wanted to get in touch with you, Colin, and I'm sure there will be some watching this video, they're going to have some questions. How can they reach you?
Yeah, so my email is Collin, COLLIN, at palisades.ca, PALISADES.ca. And both of our companies, we have a commitment to answer any shareholder inquiries within 24 hours. So we always answer. So please do reach out. I love questions.
Yeah, that is very important, especially when you're dealing with a junior.
Yeah, junior companies seem to be really quite bad at communicating with shareholders. And as soon as they take the money in, then they seem to go quiet and disappear until the money is gone. So it's very easy for us to buck that trend and, instill confidence in shareholders. And, one other thing I'll mention is Nevada King also trades on the Canadian side under the ticker NKG. And same as Newfound Gold, we started out small. We're now a big company, and in the next few weeks, we plan to have Newfound Gold trading on the New York Stock Exchange. And I would like to, have the same result for Nevada King, but there'll be a big difference in market capitalization between now and when that happens. So, now is really the time when, before the drilling starts. And before we find something that, that's where the big gains are made. And that's where I have so much fun as a speculator.
That's great. Thanks so much, Colin. Really appreciate you joining me on my channel.
Thank you so much, Yankee. Look forward to doing it again.